I want to show you the wide functionality that's available in the Fixed Assets card in Dynamics 365 Business Central. We'll be taking a brief look at the fixed asset setup and the fixed asset card, and then we'll look at components of the fixed asset card. We'll look at maintenance logging, insurance, and also the ability to set up a main asset and have component assets that roll up to it. So let's get started. There's basically two things you need to do to set up the fixed asset system in Business Central. The first thing is the fixed asset setup. Let's take a look at that screen here. It's really simple. There's not a whole lot to it. It's basically I'm identifying the depreciation book. And this is important because this is a depreciation book in which we'll be recording depreciation on a regular basis, recording acquisitions and retirements. It's also the book that will create the GL entries to the general ledger. So you need to identify that. And I'm going to allow posting to main assets, and we'll take a look at that when we look at main assets versus component assets. And there's some basic numbering systems you can set up. You can see the two that I've got here, fixed asset numbers and also insurance numbers. And that's all you really need to do on the screen. Let's take a look at the depreciation books. As I said before, I've got one set up for the company book. And the importance of this is that transactions that are in this book will be written to the general ledger in Business Central. You can see that integration here. That's what they're talking about. This is the integration to the general ledger. I can have multiple books. I can have tax books. We'll look at two of those, but you don't want the tax book entries to go to the general ledger. So let's take a look at two of the additional books I have set up. I've chosen to set up a book for California tax. This is California income tax. I'm going to record depreciation on this and keep track of those assets just from my California income tax return. You can see here I don't have the integration enabled for this tax book and I don't want it. I also have this book included as part of a duplication list, and I'm going to show you that a little later. And let's take a look at the federal income tax book. And here's another depreciation book I have set up for my US federal income tax calculations. You'll notice I've got some basic information here, but more importantly, I do not have the GL integration enabled. And this is what you want for tax books. And you don't need tax books. Most people have just one company depreciation book set up to record acquisitions, depreciation, retirements of their fixed asset system. And this then integrates to the general ledger. And that's all you really need. If you want to also record the details for income tax, you can do that easily. You can add as many other books as you want to in the system. And then you have to make sure that you record transactions that happen to the individual assets for acquisitions, depreciation, and retirements on each of those books. And including those books in a duplication list is an easy way to do it. Next, let's take a look at the fixed asset card itself. So I'm at my Business Central homepage. I want to look at the fixed assets. I'll click on this here. This shows me all the fixed assets I have in my system. This is just a basic list page. There's a lot of these in Business Central. This is the one focused on fixed assets. So here are all my different fixed assets. Let's open one up. This is an example of a fixed asset card. This is where I have most of the information about my fixed asset all in one place. I can modify this page if I want to. I can add some additional fields. I can also move fields around if I want to. But I have these basic sections on the card. I've got general information. You can see that information right here. I set up a fixed asset class codes. You can see the ones I've set up here. And these are all user defined. They're just labels, basically. You can set as many up as you want to. Also have a subclass code. You can see those subclasses right here. I can set up as many of those as I want to. So just a way to organize the fixed assets, enhance reporting. We can also identify locations in my system where these assets belong or where they're located. Can do that. Can also assign responsible employees to an asset. So if I have a laptop, I can assign that to specific employees and I can track it in that manner. We can also set up a budget for fixed assets. And as I purchase those fixed assets, I can assign them against that budget. So if you want to get real detailed on your budgeting for fixed asset, which might be a good idea if you have a large capital expense area, then you may want to use the budgeted functionality in fixed assets to track those individual purchases against the annual budget. Let's take a look at the depreciation books I have set up for this specific asset. I've got 3 of them set up for this asset. I've got the company depreciation book that I need to record depreciation, acquisition, retirements, and also feed that information to the general ledger. So that's an important one for me. For that, I'm using the straight line method for depreciation. That's pretty standard. I'm also using two tax books here. I've got a California income tax book and the federal income tax book. Again, these aren't required. If you want to get a lot of detail on the calculations for your tax books, then you might want to use those, but it's not required. I happen to have a different depreciation method. And here I'm using double declining balances to compute the depreciation for my tax books. You can see that information here. There's more information about the balance, and I've got the book value. We'll take a look at how this is established a little later on. If I want to, I can also keep track of maintenance for this particular item. I can specify a vendor number. This is my general payables vendor list. You can see that right here. I can also set up a maintenance vendor for this. I can specify who I go to maintain this asset if I need some service on it. If I want to also record the service dates and the warranty dates, I can do that as well. Not required, but it gives me more information that's in my system in Business Central. And if I have a fixed asset that's rolling stock, I can record information about that in the final section down here. You can see I've got a vehicle license plate, a vehicle year, some other information about that particular asset that allows me to add even more information about the asset into my fixed asset card in Business Central. I can also assign a picture to it. You can see a picture right here. If I had an attachment, I could also assign those attachments to this particular asset. So if I had a purchase order, a purchase quote, purchase invoice related to this asset, I could add it here. If I had specifications about the asset, I could also add that as well. It's a new functionality here from Copilot. I've got a summary. I can open that up. And what will happen is Copilot will look at this fixed asset in Business Central and give me a lot more information about this fixed asset, where it's located, specifics about how it's accounted for. You can see that information here. Now, this information is basic information that's already in the system, but what Copilot does in the summary, and the summary function is available on all cards and most transactions, it allows the user to easily look what's happening at this transaction or this card in Business Central. So this is pretty helpful. I've got this information here. I can drill down on it and get more information. So I drill down on this. I get information about this particular asset, where it was acquired, when it was acquired. I can drill down further and get more information on specific transactions in Business Central that created this fixed asset. So the Copilot summaries are being rolled out by Microsoft. It's included right in Business Central. It gives you more information about the particular item that you're looking at, whether it's a card or a transaction. It's very helpful to give you a summarized view of what's happening. I can also show more. It'll go and look for more detail on that. So this is a good way to not only get information about an item in Business Central, but it also helps you navigate to those specific items. So what I'd like to do now is create two new assets. One I'm going to purchase from a purchase invoice, and the second I'm going to copy. I just want to show you how the flow goes for this particular functionality in Business Central. I've got another video that shows on multiple ways that you can purchase fixed assets, add them into the system in various means. But first of all, let's take a look at a purchase invoice. Here's a standard purchase invoice in Business Central. I'm just going to enter the purchase invoice information. You see I've got a vendor identified. I've got some dates on here. It's a standard Business Central purchase invoice functionality. Down here in the lines now, I'm going to add a fixed asset. These are the options I have in the purchase invoice and the purchase order. I'm just going to do a purchase invoice, and I want to add a fixed asset. So I specify that. And for the number, I can add to an existing fixed asset if I want to. We'll take a look at that from a maintenance standpoint. But what I want to do now is add a new asset. So I'm going to hit new. It brings up this dialog page here. I'm going to add information about this new asset. I'm going to specify a fixed asset class code. This is tangible property. I'm going to add that. I've got a subclass code. It's going to be equipment. I'll add that. And I'll assign it to a location. No need to assign it to a responsible employee. There's not one employee that's responsible for this particular asset, so I'll leave that. If I've got the serial number, which I probably do, if I'm looking at a purchase invoice, I'm going to enter that here, put that serial number in. And this is not a main asset. It's not a component asset either, so we'll take a look at that later. But here I've got the basic information about this fixed asset item. I want to put a purchase date in here. Put that in. This is a 7-year asset, so I'm going to declare that. And right now it's going to use the company depreciation book because I have that set up in the fixed asset setup screen. You can see that here. I'm not going to add the tax books at this point in time. I'll show that in another video. So here I've got some more information about maintenance. I can fill this out right now if I want to, but I can also go back and fill it out later from the asset card. So what we're doing here is we're creating a new asset in Business Central Fixed Assets. It's going to be a new card. I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And let's take a look at this line here. I've got a lot of information related to fixed assets. Here we've got fixed asset posting type. This is an acquisition. We'll take a look later at how I can add maintenance costs to this. And this is going to be part of my insurance policy, so I want to list it here. If I click on this, it's going to show the insurance policies I have available. This is going to be a listed item on this particular policy, so I put that in there. This is going to default from the transaction date, so I'll leave that. I'll put in further cost information about this asset and also recording the purchase invoice accurately. So this is all I need to do. Now I've put in a purchase invoice. This could easily be a purchase order as well. I've identified the line as a fixed asset item, so I'm adding that information in the purchase invoice. It's going to add it to the fixed asset list, and then go ahead and post it. One of the things that I really like about Business Central is they have the preview posting functionality. This allows me to run the posting process without actually posting the transaction. The benefit of this is I can see if there are any errors before I go ahead and commit this, and I can also review to make sure it's doing what I want it to do. So I'll take a look at the preview posting screen. Here we can see it's going to do 2 GL entries. We can take a look at that. I can open this GL entry, and I've got 2. Debit and credit. This is going to go into my fixed asset account on my balance sheet, and it's going to go to payables, which is what I want. This is a payables invoice. There, it's exactly what I want. I can also look at the fixed asset entry. I know I'm going to add this, so it's going to add the invoice acquisition type to my fixed asset ledger, and we'll take a look at that later. But this is fine. This is exactly what I want for this. I'm going to go ahead and post it. Let's post that. And I'm done. That's just one way you can add a fixed asset into Business Central. Let's take a look at a second way, which is to duplicate an asset. Let's go back to the fixed asset page. I've got all these fixed assets here, and I'm going to duplicate a laptop. So I want to duplicate this asset that I already have in my system. It's easy to do. I can go right to the fixed asset card, which we're looking at here. And I'm going to copy the fixed asset. It's going to create a new asset that has all the information about this asset, which includes, in this case, the depreciation books, which I want, and some other information. So let's take a look at it. I can specify the number of copies I want. In this case, I only just want 1. And I'm going to use the number series to assign a fixed asset number to this. And I'm done. So let's go ahead and hit OK. We're still looking at the original fixed asset page. Let's go back and look at our total list. Should have a new one at the bottom. Here's the one that we added with the purchase invoice. Here's the one that we just copied. Let's take a look at that. So there's a couple things that are important here. I've got the basic information on this item. You can see that right here. What I don't have is it has not been acquired, which means this is still something I have to do. Right now, it's kind of in a fixed asset holding area, right? It's fixed asset here, but it doesn't know anything about the cost, right? Because I just copied the asset. I didn't copy the acquisition transaction. I didn't copy any of that financial information. I did, however, copy over the depreciation books. You can see that here. So the next thing would be to acquire this asset. So let's do that. So I'm going to go ahead and acquire this. And all that means is I'm going to take it from kind of a holding area and create a fixed asset for it, but I'm not showing the purchase part of it yet. So we'll do that later. So I'm going to go ahead and acquire this. Brings up this dialog sequence. Let's go ahead and hit next. So I've got options here on how I want to post this in Business Central. I'm going to use the GL account. I'm going to use the fixed asset holding account. There we go. And that's all I need. So what it's going to do is it's going to post to the fixed asset account in the general ledger, a debit. It's going to credit fixed asset clearing. So let's go ahead and hit next. I want to put the cost in for this. Because even though I copied the fixed asset, I basically copied parts of the fixed asset. I did not copy the cost because almost every fixed asset purchase is going to have a different cost, and that doesn't really make sense. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a fixed asset. I'm going to offset that to the fixed asset clearing. I'm specifying the amount here. Let's do that. I've got the acquisition date, and I'm done. And I want to look at the journal entry before I post it. So let's go ahead and do that. So this is a fixed asset journal ledger entry. You can see that here. So what I want to do now is this new asset has 3 depreciation books. It has the company depreciation book, which I want, but it also has 2 income tax depreciation books. So what I want to do is recognize that. So I'm going to say use the duplication list right here. It's going to look at my books, and I had the income tax books set up as part of the duplication list. So it's going to take that information from this particular journal entry. It's going to add that to the value in those different books. If I don't check that, then it will just add the value to the company book, and I'll have to go back and redo this. But here is a simple way to get it done for all 3 books that happen to be in this asset. Let's scroll over to the right here. And that's all I really need for this fixed asset journal entry. So let's go ahead and post that. If I go back to the copied asset that I copied from another asset I have in my system, I can see that this asset has been acquired. You can see that this toggle has been set. And if we look at the depreciation books, we can see that the company book was updated for the book value. So there's one other step I need to do in this case. So let's go ahead and do that. So what I need to do is need to post a fixed asset journal. So those were created automatically when I created the fixed asset general ledger journals. This selection right here is the one that we just completed. I'm going to go to the fixed asset journals. And here I have the information in the fixed asset journal. So what this will do is update those tax books. You can see the tax books right here. It's going to update those. And this one's all ready to go. I've got some other assets that I have in the acquisition phase here. But we're focusing on these laptops. You can see those here. So I'm going to go ahead and post this. If I want to, I can preview the posting as well. Let's go ahead and do that. I can open up the ledger. I can see I've got the acquisitions. So again, what this is going to do, it's going to add the acquisition transactions to those California income tax book and the federal income tax book. So let's go ahead and do that and post that. If we go back to this asset, you can see it's already been updated. So this is exactly what I want. So this asset is all set up. It's ready to use. I can depreciate against 3 different books. All I need to do is clear the fixed asset clearing account. I can do that with a purchase invoice, a purchase order, maybe just a journal entry. That's easy to do. It's basically a general journal entry, and we'll leave that for now. Back at the fixed asset list, and again, these are all the assets I have in my system. This last column to the right here shows whether it's been acquired or not. I can see that this asset here still needs a little bit work. This is not the HP laptop that we just did. The laptop that we just worked on was this one. We copied this laptop over from an existing asset. We went through the acquisition piece. We saw that. We added that information to 3 different depreciation books. And here's the one above it. This is the item that we added through the purchase invoice. That one's all ready to go. So next I want to show you how you can log maintenance costs against existing fixed assets. It's pretty easy to do. There's a number of ways you can do it. You can do it through a purchase invoice, which I'll show you, but you can also just add a transaction from the fixed asset card. What I want to do is add some maintenance costs to this server right here. This is a Dell server, and I'm going to add some maintenance costs to it. It's easy to do. I'm going to go up to purchasing, look at my purchase invoices. I'm going to add a new one. Let's use this vendor here, put an invoice number in. Again, what we're doing is we're looking at fixed assets. So I'm going to select fixed asset line. We're not creating a new asset now. We're going to add maintenance costs to an asset. So this is the one we selected here. I'm going to select this server here. So it brings up the information about the server. And the fixed asset posting type is going to be maintenance, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to add operating system upgraded. So let's put that information in here. Let's finish out this purchase invoice by putting the cost in here. If I wanted to, I could have multiple fixed assets in this invoice. So if I was upgrading a number of different servers, I could list them all on this invoice, but upgrade the maintenance cost to that item. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Let's post it. Let's take a look at the asset now. We can take a look at the maintenance entries easily from the card. We're at the fixed asset card for this particular server. Let's go down to history here, look at the maintenance ledger entries. Here's the entry that we just did, right? We just posted this, it went to this fixed asset. Now it's part of that record. So in this case, I recorded a maintenance cost that was supplied by an outside vendor. I can also record maintenance items done internally without a cost. So let's do that. I'll go to the fixed asset tab here, go to maintenance registration, and then I can add an item. So here I'm just going to add that we did something here. This is an old one. Let's go ahead and add something to that. I can put additional information in here if I want to, but all I want to do in this case is just recognize the fact that, you know what, I changed the network card, had some in my inventory, I took it out, I put it in this particular server, and now I'm done. That's all I need to do. I can add additional items here, but I'm done with this. So that's basically two ways to add maintenance items to your asset. You can use a purchase invoice, recognize it as maintenance. If there's a cost from an outside source, if there are internal maintenance activities that I'm doing on a particular asset, I can add that directly from the asset card in Business Central. So let's take a look at some reports related to maintenance. I can do that here. Let's go to the All Reports area. Here we've got a fixed asset area here in the All Reports. You can see that I've got a number of different reports related to fixed assets. I'm interested in the maintenance ones. Let's take a look at the maintenance register. The standard report in Business Central. Let's go and run it. Let's open it up a little bit. Here you can see I've got a list of all the maintenance activities against my fixed assets. So this is an easy way to look and see if you've done the maintenance on particular items. You've got that information right here. You can also record the service dates on the asset itself in the fixed asset card. Here's another report I like. It's called Maintenance Details. Let's open that up. There's a little bit more information here. It's a standard report. You can modify the report if you want to, but here's information about by asset, about different maintenance transactions that have been done to this asset. You can see that right here. Next, let's take a look at the insurance functionality related to fixed assets in Business Central. What I can do in Business Central is I can set up a number of different insurance policies. I may have several related to property, related to liability. So let's take a look at this one I set up. It's just basic information about this particular policy. There's nothing real surprising here, but it does allow me to assign assets to this policy. We did that in the purchase invoice that we looked at earlier. So this is the policy right here. I can have multiple policies if I want to. I can also add existing fixed assets to an insurance policy. So if I did not add it to the policy during the acquisition phase, I can go back and do it. I'm going to use this transaction here. It's fixed asset insurance journal. Here I'm adding this particular fixed asset already in my system. I'm just going to add it to the policy. You can see I've got basic amount here. I'm going to go ahead and post it. So this is not making a financial entry. It's just posting it to that insurance policy. Let's go ahead. If I need to take an item off the policy or adjust the cost, I could use the credit memo. If you're tracking insurance in Business Central on your fixed assets, there are a few reports that are helpful in this area. Let's go to the All Reports area. Go to Fixed Assets. Let's take a look at this insurance register. This shows me all the fixed assets that are currently registered for this insurance policy. So this is a list. You can go through here. You can modify it if you want to. Say, oh, that asset should not be on here. Maybe another asset should be on there. So this is a good list to keep up to date on what's insured, what's listed on your insurance policy. And here's another way to look at the assets that you have insured. Let's run this report. This is a more concise report. It shows all the fixed assets. This is an easy one to hand to your insurance person to verify that is correct. And finally, let's look at the uninsured fixed assets. This is important as well. This shows all the fixed assets that are in your system but are not assigned an insurance policy. So if you have a listed insurance policy, you want to make sure that you run this to make sure you've got all the assets on that policy that you want. Let's run a preview of that. Here it is. This is showing all the uninsured fixed assets that are in my system. You can see that right here. This is a good list to audit. Go through this and make sure that your insurance policy is up to date. Next, I want to show you a main asset and components of that main asset. This is a functionality in Business Central Fixed Assets that allows you to tie together individual assets to a main asset. So let's take a look at that. The main asset and the component assets are just listed as regular fixed assets. Let's take a look at this one here. This is my main asset. You can see it's a main asset because it says main asset. It's marked as such. So this is my main asset. You can see it right here. I've got a picture of that asset. This asset is made up of different components. Let's take a look at that. I can go up here, go to related, main asset, look at the main asset components. These are the three components that roll up to make that main asset. So this is handy if you've got component items that may go from one asset to another asset, or if it's something that's replaced on a regular basis, you may want to do that. So this can be handy functionality to tie these all together. As I showed you at the original setup, I can choose to post directly to the main asset or disallow them. So depending on what you want to do with this functionality, you may choose to post to the main asset or post to the component assets. We took a good look at fixed asset cards in Dynamics 365 Business Central. We looked at some fixed asset setup pieces. We looked at the fixed asset card itself and all the information that's available and the ability to navigate to other areas to get more detail if you want to. We looked at maintenance, how we can log those transactions, report on those transactions. And we took a look at insurance to make sure that your insurance policies are up to date with listed property. And we looked at the main asset and component functionality within Business Central. If you're ready to deploy Copilot in Microsoft 365, download our free guide with the link in our video description.